Hello, Dr. Ron England coming to you with part 4, which will likely be the final part of my self-saving single table objects beyond NoSQL. Uh, I might have some questions on how I did specific things, and in those cases I think what I'll do is I'll actually have, I might produce some more videos to answer those questions, but let's jump right into this. The first thing I'd like to do is actually show the framework in use. So I'm going to jump over here to, in this case, Firefox here, just oops, I don't want the whole page here, but I'm going to demonstrate a page that I created. Didn't get real fancy here, where I'm actually going to use an object that is part of this framework. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter some information into this form, and I'm going to, and you can see this is not really getting really creative with this. Another value here. And then I'm going to actually hit create. I'm going to show you how this code works behind the scenes. And it actually inserted this into the database. The ID that went into the database was 12646. If you notice down here, if I actually look at this, the ID, it's smart enough to figure out how to put that ID in there, but let's do this. Let's go down here, and I'm going to actually, it's in the database, I'm going to retrieve it from the database. 12646. I'm going to actually scroll this up so you can see it retrieve. Hit get ID, and there it is. It retrieved it from there and actually populated you can't really see this from here, but you can see that there is XML created, but it actually populated the class that was, the class name is sample dictionary. And the reason I call it sample dictionary is because I actually have a dictionary as one of the properties of the class. So that was pretty basic stuff. I entered some stuff into some fields, I hit a button, it saved the fields to a database, and then it retrieved it from the database. So let's now go over here back to the code. There's that form that I have right there. Well, let's look behind the scenes of that form, and that's actually a good way to kind of get started with this. Behind the scenes, here's what I did. When I clicked that button, that was the button create sample dictionary, I instantiated a sample dictionary. Sample dictionary is a class that I have in my project, which you're going to see. Okay, I set the A string property to the text that you had entered, set the A int property to the text that you had entered, and then I actually took the dictionary itself and I added the key value pairs, and then I called insert, and then I put in the object inserted with ID. Okay, and then I actually put the output of the serialization, and when I retrieved the object, I again instantiated a new sample dictionary. It's not the same one that I did when I created it. I created a new one, but this time I passed it over the ID in the constructor, and it would have automatically retrieved it from the database when you did that. And I just set the TB data, that big text box right here, equal to the XML serialized, which would have shown you the XML version of the object. Okay, that's all that was going on with that part of it. So let's go one step backwards and let's look at sample dictionary. Well, this is it. Sample dictionary inherits from XML property object. Okay, it has the properties a string, a int, a dictionary. It has a constructor. The constructor is important because a dictionary has to, because I have a dictionary that's actually in the properties, and in the properties I didn't instantiate the dictionary itself, so I had to do that here in the constructor, so I had to do it in both constructors, and you actually saw both constructors in use in that code, and that was it. Okay, so this project is literally that simple. I have all those capabilities built from XML property object. Well, I got to go back a little bit further. How did I create this project from there? Well, in this case, the project was created using the basic Visual Studio Web Forms project. I could have just as easily used an MVC or some other project type. And I created a folder. I'm going to bring this over here so you can see this a little bit better. But I created a folder called app code. App code is where I'm just traditionally put all my code in app code. I took my XML property object file that I saved that class in, and I copied it into the directory of the project, and I added it as I just did. I did add existing item. Okay, so it is an existing item. Turn that off so we can actually, and that was it. I have the ability to inherit from XML property object. Well, it's actually not completely it. There were some other steps. One is I actually have to have a database that I could use to store the stuff in. Now, you could always create your own database and create this table structure from XML object database so that the whole thing will work. Now, remember also that you need to have in your web config the connection string to reach that database. I didn't even have to go that far because I do maintain databases on Azure, which is a Microsoft service, and all I simply had to do was in my web config, and I'll show you a little bit of this. I'm not going to show you the entire connection string because it's got passwords in it, but I created in my connection strings section of my web config a object database with the provider, and then the connection string that I actually get from Azure to put in here, and that is really that simple. I add the connection string to my connection strings in the web config, pointing to a database that has a valid version of the table that I use to store this, which is the table that's actually in the comments in XML object database. I have all the XML property object and XML object database are in a single file, and I do that just simply because they do go together. And then I create a simple object or class that I inherit from XML property object, and all the methods for saving and retrieving, and I don't even have to worry. I can create multiple of these objects, multiple classes, and I can now start coding how I want things to be coded. And really, when I'm talking about how long it takes me to set up a project and get up and running with this part, we're talking about 5 minutes, and that is it. The rest of it is coding it and do the things that are specific to the code that I need to write for that, for what I'm doing there. Just for an example, so you know what kind of projects I'm doing, smadaonline.com, which is an actual public website that I produce for civil engineering calculations, is freely available and is built on top of this architecture. I also have a project called Formadillo, which is a complete web forms application that allows you to create web forms using an actual application which uses this architecture behind the scenes. It has allowed me to essentially duplicate the functionality of FormStack or Wufoo, some of the other form designers, but I'm doing it in my spare time, and I'm the only programmer working on that project, yet it still has essentially all those capabilities. I put about 5 hours a week into that project, and yet still had that capability of reproducing what a team of about 15 programmers can do as full-time programmers. So there are definite advantages to having a solid architecture to allow you to be productive, and that's what we're actually trying to achieve with this, is a high level of productivity in programming. I hope this was useful to some of you programmers out there and got a lot out of it. I will answer questions. Just leave them as comments in any one of the 4 lectures, and I may, if I have questions that I can't answer simply, I will add other lecture materials to answer those questions. I know one question I'll get is, how did I handle the XML serialization of the database? Well, you can actually get that from the code. Thank you very much, and for everyone out there that followed this, thank you. Good programming.